Hello and welcome to Multiform. Every week we get together to talk about the latest Xbox news, rumors, and the games we've been playing lately. New episodes post every Monday morning. You can email the show, questions at multiformpodcast.com, or you can follow us on Twitter at multiformpod or Facebook at multiformpod. This is episode 255. I'm Tim Shelton, and I'm joined this week by Brett Kimmerling.
Hello again.
Oh, you know what I just realized, Brett? You've shaved. Since the last time I saw you in video, you had a massive beard, and now you have a summer beard, which is much smaller.
Yeah, I shaved the other day. Anniversary and everything.
Yeah. Funny you should mention anniversary. That's the reason Spencer isn't here this evening with us recording. He's celebrating a belated anniversary because I think they were traveling during their anniversary or something like that. So they're out for their anniversary this evening. So we couldn't really, based on my schedule and his, work out a time that we could both be available. So that's why he's out. And then Gus is traveling. He's on vacation somewhere.
Oh, good for him.
Brett, as always, has come in from the bench. And so Brett, I haven't said this on the show before. Brett is great in that every Monday or Tuesday morning, he sends me notes after he listens to the show. And he says, Tim, you were wrong here. This is the fact that you couldn't remember. And, he basically gives me the Cliff's notes of what I screwed up or how my opinions are wrong in his opinion, which is great because then he can do that on the show when he's on the show. But also, if you think I'm wrong or you think my opinions or facts are wrong, you can send in your corrections too by getting and reaching out to us on Twitter. You can reach me at Tim Shelton, or I'm on Threads now at TimJ22 because Tim Shelton is taken. Because somebody took it on Instagram 5 million years ago. So I'm TimJ22 on Threads, and you can tell me how I'm wrong. And I would love to talk to you about it because I'm often wrong. But the fun of the show is just talking about games and being wrong, even if we're wrong, just to talk about it, just for the fun of it. This is like the original vision, Brett, of this podcast was when you get together with your friends and talk about the games you're playing and just like shooting the crap and, over a beer, or if you're younger, over some Mountain Dew or whatever, and you're just hanging out talking about the games you've been playing, stuff that's coming up you're excited about. We just wanted to distill that for our little friend group into a podcast, and that's how like the genesis of this whole thing began. And then it just continued on. Anyway, normally I mute myself to clear my throat, but that one's staying in. You're welcome, listeners. I get colds from my kids. You know how it is. Oh, and my wife's out of town, has been for a week. So I have the kids myself. So I'm like run ragged every day. Just got them to bed, actually. So let's start with what we've been talking about. I like to always start with the guest. And in this case, because I've had company and my wife's been gone, so I've been mostly dadding it up this week. My stuff will be less interesting than Brett's stuff. So Brett, regale me with your Xbox tales. What have you been up to the last week or two in the world of Xbox or gaming in general? We don't really preclude if you've been playing PC, Nintendo, although you don't need to tell me you've been playing Escape from Tarkov because we already know that.
I did play something new on PC that I actually didn't put in the notes.
What'd you play?
BattleBit.
Oh yeah, you messaged me about that, and I Googled it because I hadn't heard of it. I'm gonna Google it again.
It's Battlefield, but with Roblox graphics.
Which was not what I was expecting when you told me about it, and then I saw it and I was like, "This is not what I was expecting." For some reason, I was expecting a side scroller or something.
Nope, it's PvP.
Which is what put me off to it because I don't play a ton of PvP anymore. In fact, really the only time I play PvP anymore is when I'm playing with you, playing Apex or Call of Duty. Which is weird because if you think about the genesis of our friendship, we met playing PvE and PvE, however you say that, games. And, you and I played a ton of Destiny, a ton of Apex, a ton of PUBG together. And then the pendulum swung full the other way. And now I'm playing single player games. And I'm sure at some point it'll swing back the other way.
Yeah, I play a good mix of both. It's still pretty much 50-50 for me.
Yeah, I can see that here because your first game you have listed is Diablo IV, which is a good example of that.
Yeah. I'm still grinding away at the story. I hit level 43, I think, earlier today. I'm in Act 4 on the story. It's just with it being open world and now having all these little pop up side quests, I'm running into the same problems I run into with most open world games. Is that it feels like overload,
Yeah.
and I don't know what to go do, and so I'm pretty much now I'm just gonna try to focus on just finishing out the story and hitting level 50 and then grinding my way into the end game.
Yeah, I feel that with the game I'll talk about that I've been playing. I feel the same, like open world, like overload, overwhelming feeling just with possibilities. Um, is that it with Diablo 4, or is there other things that
That,
you've been up to lately?
I did download. I've been playing Grid Legends a little bit here and there. Uh, got a itch for some racing games. That one's been pretty good. Working on the career mode on that a little bit. It's kind of
Is
it's
it
got
like live action or is it CGI? I forget. Like the cinematics and the story. Is it like a hybrid of live action
it's like actual recorded.
video?
Yeah.
Okay.
In the story stuff, and then there's the career, which is set up more like Gran Turismo and Forza
Where you're
Motorsport,
selecting
where
squares, like here's your tournament.
yeah, but the driving style is still more less sim and more arcade style. So it's kind of a mixture of both styles of racing there.
Interesting.
Uh, I did download and install Need for Speed Unbound, and I think I made it through the tutorial. Maybe I didn't. I don't know. It was pretty garbage, and so I shut that down pretty quick and went back to other stuff.
So now that you've mentioned Grid Legends, Need for Speed Unbound, I want to talk about this just for a second because I also played the Crew 2 briefly this weekend because you and I were texting about racing games and the current state of racing games. And the Crew 2 was free, had a free weekend this last weekend, so I downloaded it and was going to play it. And if I liked it, I was going to buy it because it's on sale for $5. Or you can buy the gold edition with all the DLC for $8 or $9. And I was like, okay, that's like dirt cheap. If this is even a minutia of good, like $5 is worth it. I didn't even make it an hour in, and I was like, I don't hate this actively. Like Need for Speed Unbound, I really felt was too like loose. It felt like the car was sliding around on
Yep.
ice.
Yep. It would turn a little bit, and then all of a sudden it would just kick hard.
Yeah, because it has like a weird drift point in any turn.
Yeah.
Or braking where it just automatically puts you into drift, but it doesn't realistically, like it doesn't need to be realistic. It's an arcade game. I get that, but it feels so far the other way that it feels like a game from a time that is long since past where
It feels too much like Burnout, which is what all of Criterion's NFS games end up feeling like. And Burnout was fine, but I don't want Burnout in my Need for Speed.
yeah, it's really hard for me to put my finger on how when they're doing so much right as far as like graphically, it looks decent. They've
Except
sorted
for the
this.
comic book stuff.
You
The
can
little
love or
lightning
hate it
bolts of
though. I can appreciate that they tried something, right? Like it's not like bad graphics like some other
Yeah.
racing games. Like
Yeah.
the Crew isn't particularly beautiful. It's got kind of a weird Ubisoft open
Well,
world
it's
wonkiness
Ubisoft.
to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Need for Speed looks good. They try some things. They're always, I mean, they don't always land it, but at least they try things. They've done the live FMV hybrid with graphics. They've done this arcade whatever style. And again, they don't always land it, but for some reason they just lost the plot with the driving feel. Like if you go back to like Hot Pursuit, Need for Speed Underground, Most Wanted, like all the classics that really blew up, they feel so different from these like slidey drift focused modern games that it just
Well,
doesn't feel very satisfying. And maybe I'm just old, right? Like I played my first Need for Speed game was like Need for Speed 2.
Underground and Underground 2 had drift in them. It was set up very differently than what it has been in these later games. Um Carbon kind of set that in motion with their downhill drifts and stuff like that. More the drifting has been more like that ever since Carbon.
Yeah. And I think there's like three types of racing people. There's people that don't care at all and just don't play racing games. There's people that find their one racing series that they like and they play the crap out of it, which is kind of me because I really only play the Forza series. I don't play anything else. And there's people out there that just play F1 or they just play the NASCAR games or they just play Need for Speed. There's those kinds of people, which I would include myself in that camp. And then there's car fanatics that play every racing game that comes out, right? Like, so they're playing The Crew, they're playing Need for Speed, they're playing Forza, they're playing Gran Turismo, they're playing anything that has cars in it that is even slightly based on reality, like actual licensed cars. I don't think there's a lot of people in that boat. Like, I don't think there's a lot of crossover players between Forza and The Crew. I could be wrong there. That's just my theory.
Yeah, I doubt it. I think most of your hardcore race people are leaning more and more into Sims. So
Yeah,
it's
true.
they're playing
With
depending on
real,
their platform, they're playing iRacing, or they're playing Gran Turismo, or they're playing Motorsport with some Horizon to supplement that in between motorsport titles. Or they're playing like F1. Like those are the games that like your hardcore racing game fanatics are playing, and they're playing on like $1,000 sim rigs and stuff like that too.
I will say, of what I've played recently, The Crew 2 had a more classic arcade feel to it than the new Need for Speed games, but the graphics were worse and some of the other stuff was worse. So in some ways I could see myself liking The Crew 2 if nothing Forza existed.
Yeah.
But I'm completely satiated with the amount of content in Forza plus a new motorsports on the horizon. I don't really need to play another racing game, but I am always curious of what's out there. So The Crew 2, that kind of segues one of my games that I've been playing. Is there anything else you wanted to highlight before I talk about my
I
random
don't
other game?
I don't think so. Because other than that, it's just been the usual suspects.
Yeah. Call of Duty, Escape from Tarkov.
Yeah. MLB The
Which
Show.
I'm trying to be better about sticking to one game. I know you
I've,
listen to the show,
yeah.
Brett, so I've been good about it so far because I went all the way through Plague Tale and Requiem, and now I'm sticking with Assassin's Creed Valhalla with little dips into other stuff like The Crew 2, but mostly just playing Valhalla.
Yeah.
And I have played more of it since last time, but there's not really any update to give except for, I mean, the reason I haven't played as much this week, which not that I'm explaining myself, but whatever, if the listener is curious, is we had a ton of TV shows hit recently. So like if you're a Marvel fan, we had Secret Invasion. We had Jack Ryan on Amazon Prime, which if you like the kind of espionage thriller, the Jack Ryan series is really good.
I've still never watched that yet. I'd like to, but
I think you'd like it.
I probably would. I spend all my free time gaming is the thing though.
Yeah, and that's the trade-off. That's exactly why if I have a show that I want to watch, and when I'm watching 3 at a time, one evening I'll watch 2 or 3 episodes of one show and then of another, and I got to pick and choose which days I'm going to watch shows and which days I'm going to watch gaming because you only have so much free time that you can commit to being in front of a screen.
Yeah, I need to get around to finishing Terminal List. I think I've watched the first two or three episodes of that. Yeah, it's real good, but I just
like it a lot. I just don't. And The Witcher. I started The Witcher, the 3rd season, the last season with Henry Cavill. The first episode had some great fight scenes. So that's tangentially gaming related just because it's based off the source material that The Witcher games were also based off of, even though it's totally separate. But I'll probably be watching more of that because the difference with The Witcher is they dropped half a season at once, but Jack Ryan and Secret Invasion are dropping 2 episodes and 1 episode a week. So like I can only watch so much of those shows in a week because they only give me so much of those shows in a week. Yeah. So let's talk some news with that. The news is a little bit high and low this week because we had all that the FTC stuff with Xbox over the last 2 weeks. There's a few things trickling out about that, and then a few things that bubbled up during the FTC stuff that I was ignoring until they became more newsworthy, and that's where we start, which is Red Dead Redemption. So there has been these rumors of a remaster with really no source except for the anecdotal evidence of the game got a new age rating in South Korea. There was also some updating to the social club on rockstar.com of new icons for the game, which I think doesn't mean anything. They could just be updating assets on the website. There's no reason to assume that that would mean a new game. But when it really became real for me was when Colin Moriarty, who, if you don't know, is a PlayStation podcaster, he has a Patreon. He actually owns an Xbox podcast and other stuff as well. But he has a paid Patreon show that's behind the paywall. And he revealed on that show, I'll read the quote here. I can confidently state that I've seen confirmation that the Red Dead Redemption Remaster is real. I don't think you need to prove it, but I have someone who contacted me and showed me something that absolutely indicates that this game will indeed be released. The announcement is probably just around the corner, maybe even in August. It's not a big surprise to me. The South Korean rating agency doesn't just rate games, they rate what is given to them, end quote. So when I saw it was rated in South Korea, I was like, okay, so maybe they're rating it because they're going to port it to Switch or PC or some place that it doesn't currently exist because it's only on 360 and PS3. But then once Colin Moriarty comes out and says, okay, I've seen something that corroborates this, that was enough for me to say, okay, maybe there is something to this. So the question, and Brett, I guess we should get some context before we get into it, is have you played Red Dead Redemption 1 or 2?
I've put in a few hours, I think, in the first one, and then I've probably put in 45 minutes to an hour in the second one. I just downloaded it a month or so ago and played a little bit, but
I'm really
haven't
surprised.
gone back to it.
That seems like a game you would love as someone that is a fisherman and an outdoorsman of some sort. Like, it's such a good game.
Open world fatigue, man.
Yeah,
that's just I'm so busy.
It's a huge game. The story is so long, and every time you think it's ending, it just keeps going.
Yeah, like
that game is so big that once you beat it, it unlocks a third of the map that isn't even used in the story. It's just they are like, here's the map from the original game, added on with nothing but like side content, and that's just like a freebie at the end after you beat the game. It's absolutely insane how big that game is.
I have to be in the mood to want to play Cowboy in order to play something like that.
Well, I would put Red Dead Redemption 1 in my top 10 games of all time.
Yeah.
And especially, you obviously haven't gotten through to the ending, but it just has such an amazing ending that it subverts expectations in such great ways. I don't know if you want to go and spoil it for yourself on YouTube or if you're ever going to get to it, but you should because it's so good. And the second one lived up to expectations and exceeded them in many ways. So the question is, what kind of remaster will we get? Because here's where this breaks me. We've had three different types of things that Rockstar has done. They've just left old games to die on platforms that are no longer supported. They've done straight ports to PC and some other places like Grand Theft Auto 5 when it came to Xbox One. That was just a straight port with no enhancements, really. Well, actually, it did have some enhancements. Anyway, and then we have the third option, which is what they did to the Grand Theft Auto trilogy from PS2, which is they used like AI to upscale the textures and it looks kind of like weird clay. So I point all those out because none of those is a full remaster where they like take the graphics and make them modern on a game that, like what Dead Space did earlier this year.
Yeah.
That's what we would want, right? Like Red Dead 1. That was done
really well.
Yeah, like Red Dead 1 in the Red Dead 2 engine, plus then some with the new horsepower, would be amazing. But I don't know if Rockstar is going to do that because I'm not sure that they see the dollar signs with Red Dead that they do with Grand Theft Auto. And look how poorly they handled the original Grand Theft Auto trilogy.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that they're going to... Obviously, they're not going to give anything to that team again. So there's at least that. But
it was the wrong time to take a drink and you finish the sentence. I hope not. I mean, to be honest, if they just ported it just as it is, it wouldn't be that valuable because actually on Xbox, it's one of the games that got the backward compat up res to where it's 4K if you play it on Series X with the 360 version. but it's still the original assets. It's just the totally as crisp as they can be. I would prefer to get new assets, but really not change anything. So make it prettier, but don't change the game. So Dead Space, they changed the game in some ways. I would want more of like a straight visual remaster only, like Halo Combat Evolved remaster, and Halo 2 remastered. They didn't change the gameplay at all. They just changed the graphics. That's what I would want
Yeah.
for Red Dead Redemption 1.
Yeah. I would say that the stuff that they did change in Dead Space wasn't necessarily for the worse. Like the things
Yeah.
that they did change definitely were for the better. It kept up with, excuse me, the times and how they've changed. So they just made some quality of life improvements with Dead Space.
I think I would just be afraid that if Rockstar couldn't do the trilogy remaster well, that they would not make the right calls. Because I mean,
Well,
obviously, I
yeah.
would prefer them to modernize some things. Like I absolutely hate tapping X or A to gallop in the horse. If they took that away, I would be ecstatic. But they could also jank up the rest of the controls if they mess with it too much. So like I would want them to use a very subtle hand, maybe update some animations, right? Like the old animations probably only update every so many frames because of the technology they were built on. But
Right.
that is also a bigger project. And I expect that this is a project that has a budget in the tens of millions, not the hundreds of millions. Like, Red Dead Redemption 2, I think had like a $300 to $500 million budget. They're not going to spend that on a remaster. The money isn't there.
Right.
I I would love this to be real, though. I just don't want them to screw it up like they did the trilogy.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion of do it right or don't do it at all. So hopefully they learned a lesson from trying to go cheap with the GTA remasters, and they're going to do it right this time.
I mean, all you got to do is put in like the bare minimalist of effort doing it the right way, and people will shell out money like crazy for this. Like,
Yeah.
you're talking about Red Dead Redemption 2 and Grand Theft Auto 5 are some of the best selling games of absolutely all time, top 20. I think they've sold like 40 million copies or something ridiculous of Red Dead Redemption 2. Last count, it might have been 50 million. I lost count. It was either 30 or 50, I think. But still, there's a hunger for Red Dead Redemption. And I'm terrified we won't get a Red Dead Redemption 3. And if we don't, actually, I guess I'm okay with it because the stories were so complete as the two games as separate stories. But it's almost like they're leaving money on the table. The only way they're not leaving money on the table is if building that game would take resources away from Grand Theft Auto, which is printing money faster than Red Dead. But it's funny because Red Dead is bigger than every other game except for Call of Duty and Minecraft and Grand Theft Auto. So they own one of the only other games that is bigger than Red Dead Redemption. It's really funny in the context, I guess.
I just don't understand Rockstar sometimes because obviously Red Dead makes them a ton of money, but they don't seem to want to support Red Dead.
No,
Like
they shut down support for the online, I think, 6
yeah,
months or a year ago, right?
yeah, it barely existed, and they decided to shelve it. Like they didn't even give it a chance to live and breathe, and they just scuttled it. So I don't understand why they don't want to support it. Why they don't think it'll make them the same kind of money that GTA 5 online does.
I think it
Because
was a lot harder to monetize horse saddle skins than it is to do like clothing and cars and all the crazy stuff they have in Grand Theft Auto.
well, it is Rockstar. If there's one thing they can do, it's find a way to monetize stuff.
Grand Theft Auto. I saw today, maybe it was today or yesterday, that was the 10-year anniversary of the reveal trailer for Grand Theft Auto 5. So we can't be more than we're probably within a year of its 10-year anniversary, and it's still going strong. And we're going to talk about it in the news in 2 more stories. So, okay. Well, let's move on from there. Number 2. So this is the follow-up on the FTC. There's some people are still digging into the evidence, and there's just all kinds of stuff popping up here and there. People that have found interesting things in different documents. This one was fairly obvious, but I didn't see it reported until after we'd already recorded the last show. So in a document that was in the court case, Microsoft stated they're basically trying to explain how price point of their products relates to other consoles and how that defines the market. And there's a bunch of legalese and stuff in there. But the important part is there's two quotes that I pulled out. One is they said, PlayStation likewise sells a less expensive digital edition for $399.99. This is expected to release is expected to release a PlayStation 5 Slim later this year at the same reduced price point. So let me stop it there, end quote there, and then we'll talk about the second quote in a second. So Microsoft expects PlayStation to launch a PS5 Slim this year and have it cost $400. Now, what's the name of that website? Tom Henderson's website, Insider Gaming.
Might be.
Yeah, Insider Gaming. They broke a story earlier this year that PlayStation is working on the new version of the PlayStation 5, the Slim, will have no disk drive, and they'll start selling it either bundled with an external drive or the external drive sold separately. So they're basically making it where they only have to make one SKU of the console, the $400 version. And if you want a disk drive, you just buy the bundle with the disk drive or you buy it separately. That way they don't have to manufacture two different versions of the console, so they can streamline manufacturing and pump out units faster. This seems to line up with that, unless this is totally separate and it's just a PS5 Slim. But that does solidify, if the $500 version goes off the market and the $400 version gets replaced by this, that means Microsoft will then be competing where they have a cheaper console at $300 that's less powerful, and a equally powerful console that now costs $100 more than their competition, but comes with a disk drive. I don't think that's a great place to be on the console pricing standpoint. Price is a significant factor for a lot of people. And I think Microsoft feels that the $300 S puts them in a good place to where when people are going to evaluate what to buy, they'll go and buy that. But I think that works for the uneducated. But there is a segment of the audience that is educated enough to know that the S is the junior console and not as powerful, but not educated enough to know that buying the difference between a four. I mean, honestly, why would you buy an Xbox if most of the games are on both and you can buy a PlayStation for $100 less? So that, I think that's just a really bad place to be. What do you think, Brett?
No, you're probably right there. I don't know what they do. Do they reduce the price on the X at that point? I mean, it says
That would
in
be
here
the smart thing to do. But
that's what I would think they would do. I mean,
I think they'd eat their lunch.
Yeah, they're already increasing the price on Game Pass anyway, so maybe that's part of why they're increasing the price on Game Pass is is a preemptive strike on this potential for lowering the cost on the Series X. That's just me spitballing, but
I think the cost of Game Pass went up because the cost of acquiring content is going up.
Well, there's
due
that.
to inflation and labor costs and all the other things that go into it. But okay, so the second part of the quote is PlayStation, meanwhile, currently offers two different versions of the PlayStation 5, one with a Blu-ray player for physical media, the standard edition, and one without, the digital edition, and is anticipated to release further differentiated Pro and Slim models in the near future. So Microsoft thinks that PlayStation is also going to release the PlayStation 5 Pro. Now, there's two interesting things about this. Is one, this seems to indicate that the new $400 console without the disk drive would be the new standard edition console, and that the new Pro, assuming it's 500, maybe it could be 600, but let's assume it's 500, would come in replacing the current $500 model as the new Pro console, which would have more power, a la the PS4 Pro, and cost 500, just like the previous PlayStation 5 launch edition cost 500. So then you have your choice of, do I want a PlayStation 5 with no disk drive, but it's the same as the launch model and as far as power, or do I want to pay premium and get a higher end version that also has a disk drive? I think, again, this would put Microsoft in a really bad way, because Microsoft has said right now they don't see the need to do a mid-gen refresh. And I know, Brett, you've texted me when we talked about this on the show, so I know you have thoughts on this. I think that's a bad mistake. I think mid-gen refreshes in general have pros and cons, but if your competitor who's already slaughtering you does a mid-gen refresh that then they price at $500, the same as your launch edition console, So they're now, let's say 20, 25, 30% faster than you and can do more impressive games. And they have a console that is equal to your console at $100 less. I don't think the Series S matters a whole lot when you're losing on price and power on the premium edition console. I think it just is really putting them in a hard place. And my hope is that Phil Spencer is just playing his cards close to the vest and that there is a mid-gen refresh being worked on. They just haven't decided yet if they're going to put it to market until they know what the competitors are going to do and they know how the existing stuff they're doing is going to do. Brett, let's hear your thoughts, though. I know you've texted me before about the mid-gen
I
refresh.
agree with what Spencer had to say back last time you brought this up. I don't see a reason for either of them to do this.
What if one does and the other doesn't, though?
I still don't like it. Like, I understand what you're saying, but at that point, it's just Xbox trying to just chase. They're just trying to chase Sony. They're not doing it for any real legitimate reason. They're just chasing Sony.
Well,
and
kind of what they're doing, except for they are innovating in some ways with Game Pass, but like other places like content and some other things, they are chasing Sony.
The CPU and GPU technology has not leapt forward to the degree that it did at the last mid-generation.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, either of them doing this time around is just a money pit. It's just to suck money out of people. Like it's not.
And people will. There is a segment. There's probably, I don't know, between 5 and 10% of the audience that will upgrade no matter what you put out.
Yeah. Yeah, they see that and they're going to go after it, but there's no real reason to be doing it other than just dollar signs. Because I can tell you right now, the game developers aren't going to change the way they're developing games, and they can put 4K 60, 4K 120 hertz. They can flash that in all the marketing ads they want. The game developers aren't going to do it. They're going to do the same thing that they've done this last generation, and it's going to be 1080 at 60. Maybe.
Yeah, or 1440 at 60 upscale.
Yeah.
I mean, we are seeing a lot of upscaling used on console. And even then, I think people went into this generation expecting 60 was going to be the norm. And we're now seeing games start to revert back to having 30. We've had a lot of high profile ones recently. Everything from Jedi Survivor. Well, actually, technically that one had a 60 mode, but it didn't work. Gotham Knights, A Plague Tale Requiem. There was one other one. Some of these got 60 FPS modes later. Some of them didn't. But we are seeing more and more 30. Oh, Starfield obviously has been announced. That's the most high profile one.
And a lot of it is just because they're prioritizing 4K. They're 4K. And it's like, it's not, I mean, yeah, sure, it looks great in movies, and when you do it right in video games, it looks pretty good, but there's a lot of PC gamers who play at 1440.
Yeah, so I have
1440 is very popular in PC. So you don't need to go all the way to 4K. You need to start getting 60 FPS standard across all your games.
So I have two monitors for my PC. The one on my left is 4K 60. The one on my right is 1440 144. And I play games on the 1440 144 because I can play high frame rate 1440p. If I wanted to, I could do 4K 60. I have that monitor right over here, but I don't because I'd rather have all the visuals and all the frames at a lower resolution. And I like that most games are giving us that option. Like if I have to pick 1080p 60 or 1440 60, at least games that do it right, that's a good option. The only thing that I really hate, and I don't know if this is a CPU or GPU bottleneck that I wish the next generation would have the horsepower to deal with, is pop in. Like I'm seeing more and more when you select the 60 mode, they turn in the level of detail, fade in distance. And so everything from Forza at 60, Jedi Survivor at 60, what's the other one I'm thinking of? What was I just playing? It doesn't matter. It's 60. You have things popping up at you. Oh, Assassin's Creed Valhalla at 60. Like the pop in is when you're on horseback, you could see, the bushes going from low fidelity to high to medium, whatever. And that is very jarring to me. if it's too close to where the player is, especially at high speeds in a car or horse chase or whatever. A part of me, like, I know that they think this wouldn't sell, but I would love for them to cut costs on stuff that people don't like. They have to know that there's a very small amount of people still buying a disc drive, and where the way Sony's going with having the disc drive be an external thing you can buy as an option or an option bundled is the right way to go. Like, my laptop doesn't have a disc drive anymore. Like, my car doesn't have a disc drive. Like, nothing has a disc drive that I own except for my Xbox Series X. And I would love for an Xbox Series X Pro to be all horsepower, a bigger SSD, and get rid of the freaking disc drive. And I'm trying to think, maybe I mean, I don't know where else you could cut costs. It already only has 3 USB ports, which isn't that many. But maybe removing the disc drive is enough to get it down $50 or $100. That seems to be what it did for PlayStation. But like, how many people are paying for the disc drive in their Series X? Have you ever used yours? I think you do have some disc games, right?
I have some disc games, but I use the disc drive more when I'm watching movies.
Which you probably
Because
have
I don't
consoles around
stream.
that you could do it with if you didn't have one.
Well,
right?
I mean, it's got the best Blu-ray player that I have in my house in it, so I'm gonna use that.
Well, don't you own like PS3s and PS4s though?
I do have PS.
So I mean, it's not like you don't have other options as much.
Yeah, but I don't.
I think
the PS4 is the only one that's hooked up.
I think I put one disc in my my Series X the entire time I've owned it, and I don't even remember why that one disc was put in there.
I play the majority of my games digitally. I still have who knows how many games that I probably have backward compatibility that I haven't installed or anything like that but I've got games back in that room that if I want to, I can throw them in there.
I mean, I have some too. They're in a bin somewhere in this closet, and I just don't like. And a lot of them, since they're old, have come to Game Pass or been given away on Games with Gold, or I bought them for $3 on a sale, to where I would just never need to find the disc again anyway. Well, we could stop talking about this here unless you have any final thoughts. But
No, I'm good.
If they did it right, the price point was right, it had more power, and it looked cool, and they dropped the disc drive, I think, like, I would obviously buy it. I buy whatever new Xbox hardware comes out generally, but I don't think I don't want them chasing PlayStation, but they should be working on this. Like, we know they're working on the next Xbox.
I was like, or they could just put more time and effort into the next full gen. Like,
that is the counter argument, right?
Imagine working the entire time on the next full gen instead of working half of the time on a mid gen and then another half of the time on the next full gen.
And you could be onto something there, because that is a strategy to say, look, we've lost this generation so badly that let's just absolutely crush the next generation, and let's stop trying to catch up on hardware, because we're not going to. So let's focus on Series S and Series X selling, Game Pass being the draw, and the next generation console needs to be so inescapably attractive that we jump back to a minimum of 50-50 with the PlayStation at launch for the next generation, because obviously right now we're at 2-1, 3-1 with PlayStation.
It's always going to be difficult, because at best the market in the US is split 50-50 and the market in Europe is split 50-50. This is at best. Whereas Japan is where Sony gets all that ground. It's maybe 80-20 split.
Even right now, they're blowing Xbox out in almost every market but the US. And the US, they're still beating them, just not as handily.
Yeah.
And that's because Microsoft is based in the US and PlayStation isn't.
Yeah. Xbox can't get a good footprint in Japan, and that's the big thing that hurts them.
Yeah. Okay. Number 3. I reordered the stories a little bit. So the Grand Theft Auto story I mentioned a minute ago is not going to be number 3. It'll be number 5, but there's a good reason. So number 3, NBA 2K24 has announced that they're going to have crossplay for the first time in the franchise's history. And they tied that in with, this is the 25th anniversary of the series. And they also revealed the cover star, who's Kobe Bryant, which I want to talk about that. Let's stop right there for a second. Kobe Bryant, I don't know how I feel about taking former athletes that are no longer alive on the cover. Like when they had that special edition with Michael Jordan on the cover, he's a living person. It never feels great to do. It's the same way that who recently there was somebody in a Star Wars or a Marvel movie that was posthumously I have such a hard time.
Posthumously.
Yes, that.
Posthumously.
Yeah, was in a movie, and they were talking about how like they would be rolling over in their grave if they knew that this had happened. Their family signed off on it, and I'm sure they got permission from Kobe's next of kin or power of attorney or whatever it is. But I don't know. It feels gross in a little bit of a way. I'm not an NBA fan, so I don't really have a stake in this. But does it feel gross to you to have not that long ago deceased person on the cover of a video game?
No, I mean it's pretty.
Hang on, never mind. I remembered one. John Madden was on the cover of Madden after he died.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's pretty common. That one definitely makes sense. The game is named after him, so obviously they're going to honor him.
I think, could argue Kobe Bryant isn't. He's clearly in the top 5 most famous NBA players of all time.
It's 2K24. He wore the number 24.
Okay,
and he just recently he's not been dead that long.
Kind of
makes sense.
I'll allow it. Okay, next up. Okay, so the crossplay thing. So they had this trailer. By the way, you should check out the trailer for this. It's the most, I don't know, Gen Z trailer ever. It's this kid riding his bicycle around telling everyone that NBA 2K is now cross-gen. And he like rides his bicycle through an NBA press conference and he's like screaming at the top of his lung, and the way it's cut together and the music, it's so insufferable. But at the end of the trailer, there's a gotcha. There's an asterisk, except for it's not an asterisk. They put it up in big letters, but the way it's worded, I don't know that everyone's going to catch it because it's not that clear. I mean, they said it, but it wasn't in such a way because it says on new gen. So only crossplay between PS5 and Xbox Series X and S. So no crossplay on PC, Switch, Xbox One, or PS4. And I'm sure they have a good amount of people playing on those new gen consoles. There's 30 million Series X's and S's we now know, and there's something like 70 or 80 million PlayStation 5. So that's 100 and something million potential consoles they could be on. But they have a lot of people still playing on PS4, Xbox One, and PC that now can't play with their friends, even though their other friends can.
At some point, you got to make the cutoff, right? It's
but no PC?
Well, I doubt that there's many PC players that are actually playing NBA 2K. I'm sure they're out there, but I doubt that they are anywhere near the majority.
Okay, fair enough. My other thought on this is, and I think I've said this on the show once before, is me as a kid, this is like the thing I dreamed of when I was a teenager, and like my friends had a PlayStation, I had an Xbox, we couldn't play together, and this seemed like a world that would never happen. But now, Call of Duty, cross-platform. Madden, cross-platform. MLB The Show, cross-platform. NBA, cross-platform. Forza isn't. Neither is Gran Turismo because those are exclusives. But like your major multiplayer and sports games are mostly all cross-platform. It feels like this was one of the last big dominoes to fall. Fortnite was that first thing that kind of pushed everybody over because they had enough oomph to push Sony into it. I'm just happy. I wanted to put this in here just to say I'm happy, even though I don't play NBA. I'm just happy that this exists. Like, I think this is good for everyone, and I think there's no downside to letting people play with their friends, even when they're somewhere else. I like it.
I agree. It's a good thing.
Okay, number 4. The trailer was terrible, though. Number 4. I want to talk about Assassin's Creed's historical accuracy / education stuff. So Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla had Discovery Tour, where you could go into a separate mode and you could walk around the world without combat or any of the assassin stuff, basically. Like, you just could drop into the world and walk around and see the guy fishing and see the people walking around the market, and you could talk to them and you could learn about them through like pop-ups. I think I've only played one or two of them. I think I played the Greece one and the Egypt one, but I never played the Valhalla one. But I'm still playing Valhalla, so maybe I will. They're doing it differently for Assassin's Creed Mirage, which obviously is going to be a more classical Assassin's Creed game. So IGN had a great article about this called Ubisoft Reveals Educational History of Baghdad feature for Assassin's Creed Mirage. And here's two quotes from the IGN article. Unlike the educational discovery modes featured in previous Assassin's Creed games such as Origins and Odyssey, the History of Baghdad content will not require the player to enter a separate mode for Mirage, end quote. So that was the first thing I was like, oh, that's great. So it's going to be in the main game to where you can just like, have a tooltip or an optional codex to be like, if you're a nerd for history or you want to learn about something, it's there at your fingertips without you having to jump out and go into a separate mode to specifically learn about history. Like, put the fun Assassin's Creed gameplay together with the educational stuff so people are more likely to engage with it, right? Makes sense? If you're a nerd for history, like there's only a certain amount of people that are going to do this, but like for the people that care, you're definitely going to have a better hook if you make it more accessible.
I see that. I also wonder if it might be too distracting from the actual gameplay. I mean, you're talking about a huge chunk of information, right? But granted, I haven't played enough of those Assassin's Creed games to know how discovery mode works. So I'm just speculating.
Yeah, discovery mode was totally like a separate mode where you basically like dropped into Egypt and there was no like, it's like the Assassin's Creed part just didn't exist. You're just walking around the open world and the NPCs are living their lives, and it would give you like little points that you would walk up to and it would teach you something, and you'd walk to the next one and it would teach you something. So like it was truly educational.
So it's gonna just
that was the old way.
Send you on, like, you're gonna walk up to something while you're playing the actual game, and it's just gonna be like, here's a 5-minute story.
No. It sounds like, let me read the next quote, because it sounds like they're making it a collectible. So here's the quote.
Grimoire cards from Destiny 1.
Sort of, yeah. Hang on, this is a quote I'm quoting IGN, not quoting Ubisoft. Instead, the offering will be via an in-game codex as the player progresses through the story, in a similar vein to how Ubisoft imparted historical facts in earlier Assassin's Creed titles. And then the article later says 66 locations unlock entries according to the IGN article. So it sounds like there's 66 locations in the game that when you go to those locations, it'll just pop up like the little eye icon for information or whatever. And if you want to, you can go read the new entry that has been unlocked in your codex, but it doesn't like pop up in your face and interrupt your gameplay. So it's like, it's almost like a collectible of going to all the locations, like how Spider-Man, the PS4 game, had. You went to different locations and unlocked like location collectibles. I like this. I like that it's subtle, easy to get to. If you're interested in knowing like the history of a building or a certain thing, which I don't know much about this time period or this location, but there's definitely been times I've played Assassin's Creed games where I'm like, oh man, I wish I understood this. Especially like the Great Pyramids. I learned so much about like interesting Egyptian stuff just from playing Assassin's Creed Origins. And having this where it was even more accessible would have made it even better. Because like I said, the discovery mode was a little bit of a, wow, you just went RGB puke on me. Like strobe light.
I'm trying to futz with some things. Sorry.
It's great. So I ordered 6 new RGB fans for my PC. I'm going to make all the fans match. And I ordered them from Amazon. And they were supposed to come last Thursday. They said, okay, they're going to be a day late. Didn't show up. Now they said, okay, they're going to maybe come on Monday. And it literally says maybe. And if they don't, we'll just refund you. But the funny thing is I paid for a different fan from a different seller on Amazon, not Amazon, that wasn't supposed to come for a week. That one came early and was already delivered. But the ones coming from Amazon that were supposed to be 2-day Prime are now lost in the mail. And I'm probably just going to get refunded and have to reorder.
Prime is so weird now. Like,
it's
ever since the pandemic.
And bad.
Like, I feel sometimes like I'm getting ripped off because I'm paying for 2-day delivery, and a lot of these things that are Prime are like 3 or 4 days. And I'm like, why is this in Prime? That's
Oh,
not what this is.
I live less than half a mile from a hub, and I get like I got something the other day. I ordered it at 11 a.m. and it was at my house by 5 hours later.
I'm trying to think if I've ever gotten anything same day. I have a fulfillment center 10-15 minutes from my house too. Uh, but I don't think I think I've ordered a couple things that said it could be there by end of day, but it didn't come until next day. But there's still a lot of things where I'm like, it's right down the road. Why is it taking 4 days?
Yeah, well, and not everything is down the road. Though some stuff
But
has
it
to,
but I'm
go
also
from Kentucky
paying for Prime, and this thing is listed as Prime and still not being 2 day. And
well,
it's just
now
like,
there's like 4 tiers of Prime though. You got the Prime same day, the Prime next day, the Prime 2 day, and the Prime we'll get it to you when we can.
thanks COVID.
Hey, here's a couple. I have 2 examples of it going in my favor. I ordered 2 boxes of Oreos 2 weeks ago for a total of $10.
You order your Oreos from Amazon?
No, it was a limited edition. I wanted to
Okay.
try the cotton candy ones, but I knew they were going to sell out because they're only for the summer or whatever. So I just was like, oh, I'll just order 2 on Amazon because that way I don't have to go hunt them down at a store. So it was $10, $5 for each pack of Oreos. The UPS guy happened to show up when I was unloading the back of my wife's car in the driveway, and he walks up to me with the Oreos and he hands me these 2 massive boxes. They sent me 2 cases of Oreos. I paid $10 and they sent me $130 worth of Oreos.
Are you keeping them?
Yeah, I mean, they didn't want them back when I asked, so yeah, I'm keeping them. I have 24 packages of cotton candy Oreos, and let me tell you, it has not been good for my waistline having that much access to Oreos. I'm probably averaging about half a package a day.
When did you say you got these?
Like a week and a half ago.
Okay, so your wife was home when you got these.
Yes, she was, and we took 1 pack to the 4th of July party that we went to. I was just like, well, we have this many. We'll just put this on the dessert table. And like, I'm giving them out willy nilly. I'm like, hey, you want to try some cotton candy Oreos?
I bet somebody at that Amazon facility is not.
I bet nobody even notices. It's like a decimal on a decimal on a decimal. So that's one. And here's the other one. So I ordered this rug. It's how big was it? It was 8 feet by like 10 feet. It's this massive rug. Amazon delivers it to my house and they send a picture and I go and get it at the front door. So it's supposed to be 8 feet by like 10 or 12 feet. Massive. The box is like the size of a small chihuahua. And so I open up the box and inside is hand soap and deodorant.
That's not your order.
6 of each. 6 hand soaps, or was it 3? I think it was 3 hand soaps and 3 deodorants. And it was the kind of deodorant I used too, which was weird. And it had a different address on the box. So I reach out to Amazon and I'm like, what? By the way, I'm sorry if you're only here for video games. This is the kind of tangents we get off on. We'll get back to video games in like less than 5 minutes. I'm like, hey, I got this, had the wrong address. I got this stuff. They're like, keep it. And I'm like, great. I can use hand soap and deodorant. I am a human being. And so I said, what about my rug? And they said, well, we don't know where it is, so we'll just refund you. They give me my $180 or $200 back. About a month goes by. A month.
Did you reorder the rug or did it just magically show up?
I didn't. A month goes by. The rug shows up on my front door with no announcement from Amazon, no notification, no like, hey, we found your order, it's delivered. Just some guy found it buried at the bottom of his truck or in the bottom of the warehouse with my address stuck on it. And they're like, might as well deliver it, and threw it on my porch. And as far as Amazon's concerned, this rug doesn't exist. So I can't even talk to them about it to be like, what do you want me to do? And they're just like, I guess you got a rug.
There you go. I mean, that's...
So it's like, sometimes their efficiency goes in my favor, and sometimes their efficiency screws me. Like
we had a similar scenario. We ordered some like deep dish pizza pans, or a deep dish pizza pan, like a couple years ago.
They sent you $130 worth of pizza pans.
Well, no, it was like a $30 pizza pan. It's really nice. But they packed 2 together, one inside the other, and didn't realize it. So we We paid for one and got two.
When I got my PS4 on launch day, I had ordered it with Killzone Shadowfall, and it didn't come with the pre-order bonus or something. Something it was supposed to come with the game that didn't come with it. So I reached out to Amazon and I was like, "Hey, I ordered a console, a game, and this other thing, and the other thing didn't come. What do you want me to do?" And they're like, "Keep the game. We'll send you another one." So they send me another game, another Killzone Shadowfall. The thing isn't in there again. Best I can tell, at the last minute, Sony, the publisher, decided not to include that thing that was advertised with the game.
Oh,
And obviously Amazon didn't know the difference. So they just sent me another one because they're like, "Oh, it must have been our mistake." And I reached back out to Amazon. I'm like, "What do you want me to do?" And they're like, "Well, you got two games, share one with a friend." And I was like, "Okay, thanks." Brand new $70 game or $60 game. So I had two Killzone Shadowfalls on Blu-ray.
you're way too nice to contact them about mistakes.
I'm a very honest person when it comes to this kind of thing. It's like if I door ding your car and I see you in the parking lot, I'm going to be like, "Hey, dude, I door ding your car. Here's the damage."
Well, that's
Like,
one thing. You're talking about another regular human being.
well, but like I don't want to be like committed. Like, I don't want to be accused ever of like gaming the system with Amazon to where I get cut off from ever being able to order again. Not that I'm dependent on Amazon, but like there's some things that you can get from Amazon that would just be inconvenient to get anywhere else.
Oh, I
And
know.
we do spread it around, like we do Costco, Target.com, a bunch of other stuff. But like there's some things that you just, if you get them from Amazon, you're either getting them faster or cheaper and you can't buy them anywhere else or you're waiting months. And that efficiency is just, you need it
Yeah.
as an option. I wouldn't want to
Yeah.
get banned because they think I gamed them on a rug. I obviously wanted to buy the rug. I was okay with spending the money. I don't need you to give me the rug. Just take my money.
That's fine.
By the way, the
Well,
rug, because by the time the rug came a month later, all the furniture that we needed to go on top of the rug was already assembled and organized, and moving it was going to be so much of a pain that the rug is still rolled up in my garage 6 months later.
oh, come on.
No, it's like I would have to disassemble the entire room to get the rug in there because the rug was huge. And getting that much furniture out of there, and some of it is huge and weighs a ton, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not even going to bother. Well, the next house, we got a brand new rug rolled up, ready to go. By then, my kids will be old enough not to ruin it within a week. Or my dog. Anyway, back to video games. I think we were done with Assassin's Creed Mirage. We can move on from there. Game Pass, number 5. Game Pass additions and subtractions for the first half of July. Grand Theft Auto 5 is returning to Game Pass with cloud and console, which I think is significant because it includes the new version, the next gen version. So the third version of Grand Theft Auto 5. So that's the first big thing. And second thing is it adds it to the cloud because anything on Game Pass is in the cloud. So now not only do you get a better version of Grand Theft Auto 5 if you didn't upgrade or if you've never played it, but you can also play it on the cloud on your phone or your computer or your PC or whatever. So I think that's just good. Obviously, they've milked as much money as they can out of that, but I mean, it has to be so good for them for it to be on subscription services because then they're not making money on the game; they're making the money on the microtransactions. So, like, if that gets more people to play the game and then buy microtransactions, it pays for itself, I assume.
Yep.
Okay, other games. Sword and Fairy Together Forever also is available now. And then upcoming games. Well, when this was announced, it was upcoming. Now it's the past. McPixel 3 came out last July 6th. And then upcoming, we have, what a weird name. Come On Hood or Common Hood or Come On Hood.
Common Hood.
Yeah, I'm Common Hood. Common Hood, July 11th. Insurgency Sandstorm on PC, July 11th. That one's PC only. Exoprimal Cloud Console on PC, July 14th. Tectonica game preview, cloud console PC, July 18th. The Cave, July 18th. And then leaving Game Pass on July 15th is XO1, which I've literally never heard of. Paw Patrol the movie, Adventure City Calls, which if I had known this was on Game Pass, I would have already had my kids try it because they love Paw Patrol. They watch it at their school.
Well, most toddlers do.
Yeah, I've only recently, within the last month, realized what Paw Patrol was because we never watched it at our house, and my kids started talking about it, and I found out they were watching it when they eat their snack at school. And so I only recently discovered Paw Patrol, even though I have two 3.5-year-olds. And then Spelunky 2 is also leaving Game Pass. So if I had to do your highlights here, Spelunky 2 leaving Game Pass is probably big for a lot of people. I know some people want to check out Exoprimal. That seems to be
I do.
pretty high up there. And Grand Theft Auto 5, obviously, just having that is a big draw just anywhere, even if I think every human on Earth already owns 6 copies. And then you acted like you'd heard of Commonhood. Have you heard of that game?
No,
The
no,
the
I was
cover
just
art is like a character staring at some grass with pink hair. It's like okay.
no, I don't know. I was just commenting because that's how it read to me.
Yeah. And then Exoprimal is that like the Jurassic Park type game, right? Like it's a dinosaur game.
Well, you get like suits, sort of like the javelin suits in Anthem, and then there's dinosaurs that you're fighting, I
Okay.
believe.
Yeah,
And
here's the write up. Every month is T-Rex Awareness Month in Exoprimal. Squad up and take down hordes of dinosaurs in a series of endless war games run by the artificial intelligence Leviathan. Blended PvE and PvP combat with a variety of objectives and powerful exosuits to pilot. No two matches of Exoprimal play out the same. So it's a PvEVP, it sounds like.
I want to give it a try. It looks pretty cool.
I think it's worth trying. I don't think it's going to blow up. That's just my gut feeling. I
Yeah.
think it's going to be a splash in the pan. But
And then I might download Insurgency Sandstorm on my PC. Play that a little bit.
How long's that game been out? It seems like it's an older game.
A while.
How much was that battle bit when you bought it on sale, by the way?
Well, I bought it at normal price, which is $15.
Oh, so on sale it's probably even. Oh, you
It's
told me
not
it was-
on sale.
Yeah, I remember now.
Because it's only 15 to begin with.
Okay. Two more stories. Number 6, Disney Speedstorm. So this is the Mario Kart like Disney game that is in early access now. It has been since April 18th, but only if you buy like one of the premium packs do you get early access. So it's coming. Insurgency Sandstorm was 2014. Okay. So Disney Speedstorm is coming out in its final version on September 28th, and it is going to be free to play. I'm really actually interested in this one because it's a Disney version of a Mario Kart. Now, being free to play, it could be great and just have cosmetics that you buy, or it could be gross. The fact that it's being developed by a former mobile developer in Gameloft, leaves me a little worried. But I could see myself playing this with my kids because it's a Disney racer and it's free to play. So if we can actually play it without spending microtransactions, or maybe they're good microtransactions, and I'm willing to, buy my daughter Elsa or whatever so she can have her favorite character. Like, I'm not against spending money on a free to play game if it's done well, but I really am worried. Gameloft has not had a great track record in my book in the way they monetize their free to play games. I'm sure you don't care because Disney kart game is definitely not your cup of tea.
Not generally, no. But is this an Xbox only thing, or is this a
I think
console
it's everything.
one? Okay, because my wife and I do enjoy playing Mario Kart from time to time, and she is a big Disney fan as well. So it's something we could do together.
I'm looking up their Wikipedia right now, or I'm looking it up on Wikipedia.
But as I recall, like there's a bunch of stuff that's
Switch,
not in
PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Windows, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X and S. So it's basically everything.
I thought I recalled seeing something about characters that would or would not be in the game.
I can run down the list right now according to Wikipedia. Mickey Mouse and Steamboat Mickey, Steamboat Pete, Donald Duck, Goofy, Hercules, Mergara, Mulan, Ling Sheng, Belle, Beast, Mowgli, Baloo, Jack Sparrow, Elizabeth Swan, Figment, I don't know that one, James P. Sullivan, Mike Wazowski, Celia May, Randall Boggs, Woody, Buzz Lightyear, Bo Peep, and Jesse. So I think I'm reading that as you got Mickey and his crew, Beauty and the Beast, The Jungle Book, Pirates of the Caribbean, Monsters Inc., and Toy Story.
Yeah. Maybe it was a different...
There's literally a list here. Also, Hercules, Disney Parks, that was the Figment one, and Mulan, I missed that one. Yeah, that's all of them.
There was something Disney related that was coming out also, and it seemed like it had an extremely limited amount of characters that were going to be actually playable without microtransactions. And I thought it was this, maybe it was something else.
It's probably that magic like walking sim game, Disney Xbox One game. Hang on, I'll tell you the name of it. What didn't come up immediately? That's not great. Dreamlight Valley.
No, it's not that, because you
Oh,
play as a customized character in that. My wife has that on her Switch also.
Dreamlight Valley.
Hmm.
My wife
It's
found it kind of
actually
boring.
well, you have to, if you like games like Animal Crossing, then, and my wife does. She's
See, my wife doesn't. I'm actually so now I've fallen down the rabbit hole. I'm on the Wikipedia for Disney games, and I'm not seeing live action game. They have it split between animation games, live action games, and DuckTales Remastered. I forgot about that one. Man, the way this is organized, I'm never going to find what you're talking about. You'll have to
no
text me
worries.
if you think of it. Yeah, I'm interested just to see if this is decent, but I don't know. Gameloft has kind of a weird reputation, and
I can't think of anything of what else they've done.
well, they do all the like mobile games. Like here, I'll read you their gameography just so you can get a like taste for the stuff they've made. So they do all the like mobile asphalt games. So like the asphalt racing, they did Asphalt 3, Asphalt 4, Asphalt 5, Asphalt 6, Asphalt 7, Asphalt 8, Asphalt 9,
Wow.
Asphalt Injection on Vita, Asphalt Nitro, Asphalt Overdrive. So all those are racing games on mobile. Then they did uh some ports of various Assassin's Creed games. Like they did Assassin's Creed Brotherhood for phones with mobile keyboards and Java phones. So like for other markets, that's just in the A's. How many games have they made? Oh my gosh,
Okay.
there's hundreds. But
Okay.
it's a lot of mobile stuff.
Yeah.
Like Iron Man 2, keyboard based mobile phones and iOS. Iron Man 3, keyboard based mobile phones, Android and iOS. So like they made the mobile Android iOS and Iron Man 1 and 2 games, or 2 and 3 games. Like just tons of mobile games, like garbage stuff with like predatory microtransactions.
Typical mobile stuff.
Well, not always predatory, but just like more gotcha than what we normally accept on console is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So my fear is that because Dreamlight Valley is kind of that way, like it's kind of microtransaction-y, but it's not near as bad as like an Asphalt game. So I don't know. It could be good. It could be bad. It could be a little bit of both. I'm just interested to see where it shakes out. And the last news story I have, number 7, is not really much to talk about except for Xbox has confirmed that Xbox and Bethesda will be on the show floor at Gamescom 2023. This is their second year consecutive. They were there in 2022 and had not been there since 2019 as the pandemic in 20 and 21 where I don't think there was a Gamescom. So they pretty much are keeping pace with always going to the show when there is a show, which is interesting because obviously E3, their last appearance on the show floor of E3 was 2018, and in 2019 they were 100% off-site. So they've continued to be involved in Gamescom despite completely pulling to move off-site for E3, and now E3 is dead. So it's just a
That's so
different
sad.
strategy. It is. It definitely feels like a bygone era, but also when I was a kid and I looked forward to E3, it was because all the journalists would go and see the stuff I couldn't see because the internet didn't exist. And then they would write about it in their magazines and I would read about it. And those would be games that I would look forward to. Nowadays, all of that stuff is happening 24/7 because not only do game companies directly communicate with us via social media, but they also have their own YouTube accounts, plus YouTubers covering stuff, plus digital websites covering stuff. So like there's no there's no delay of like needing press to go to this event, cover it, and then distill it in, and then a couple weeks later print it.
Right,
Like
but
that
then why
all
go to
has been.
Gamescom?
Well, Gamescom is a different show. It's a fan show where they let the fans play the demos and stuff on the
Which
show
is what
floor.
E3 turned into by the end.
It did, although I went to the last like real year that had the last show floor year, 2019, and a lot of like I went 18 and 19 was a step down from 18. And I know that 18 was worse than it had been in years past, as far as like so many big publishers had pulled out that I believe when I went in 18, like Activision was still there. So you had Destiny and Call of Duty, and Bethesda was still their own. So they had their own booth, and Mixer had a booth with all the Microsoft stuff. Ubisoft had a booth, Square Enix, like everybody, Nintendo. By 2019, some of those had already pulled out. Like there was no Activision in 2019, and Bethesda was still separate. Even did they have a show floor that year? I can't remember if they did. I think they did because I think I played Doom Eternal on the show floor, and that was before they were acquired. Microsoft had pulled out; they were separate. So like it was really kind of dead in 2019. Like if I go through my photo reel of the games that I played and the stuff that I did in 2019, I remember being kind of bored. Like there wasn't really that much excuse even as a fan to go. Versus Gamescom, the show floor is so much bigger and so many more publishers bring games. But you're right. Yes, they did invite fans in on certain days
It
for the
is
last couple
always
E3s.
it's always felt to me, and from what I've heard from other people who are more on the journalism side, other podcasts, is that a big part of the reason why publishers and stuff stopped going to E3 was because they started letting the public into it.
Yeah.
So now, like, and then you've got Gamescom, which is so it doesn't make sense that they were upset that E3 let the public in, but they do Gamescom, which is mostly public and less journalisms. It doesn't like
I think the hard part was when they would do it with industry only, you were willing to show stuff that wasn't as polished because you could either set the parameters, right? The publisher would either be invite only or they'd be like, look, this is not final. Like, and the journalist could tell that through like a lens of in context, right? Like this has a lot of work to be done. What we saw is early days, but if they stay on this path, it looks like it's going to be something special. Versus once they started letting the public in, publishers were less willing to put that unfinished work in front of people because they didn't want to hurt the opinions of people that wouldn't have that context, right? Like if you're playing an unpolished build that you were comfortable with the public seeing is very different from what you might let journalists see earlier in the process so that they can start to build an audience for that product. And I don't know. There is some excuse to do a hybrid show. I just think they always did it wrong. Like if the first 3 days were press days and the last 2 days, but the you still run into the problem of being able to set up your booth for dual purpose because they're different audiences with different expectations, different needs. That last year, a lot of the booths had gone invite only, and you either needed an invite and they had like a gatekeeper with walls built up inside the show floor that you couldn't get in, or you needed to be there's different tiers of badges for E3. There's media, press. Wait, media, press, or are those the same? And then there's developer, like the ones that you're a presenter, and then there were gamer badges. You had to have the media badge to get into certain ones, and even then without an appointment you just had to go and hope that there was slots. Like that's how I saw Lego the Skywalker saga before it was out, is I just went to their closed door booth. It just had white walls all the way around it and you couldn't get in, and I was like, hey, are there slots open, could I check this out? And they let me in, but there were all kinds of rules, like we couldn't have our phones out, and like I don't even remember. It wasn't that many rules, but it was like, hey, please don't photograph this. It's non-final gameplay. You can describe what you're seeing, like general
right.
like stuff. But again, they're setting the stage because it's a small room of media and journalists versus gamers going up to a thing to play an unpolished build with no context, and they're going to yell about it on the internet on Reddit and tell people the game sucks, even though it's a year and a half from release. So I don't know. I understand it, but also I think E3, it's hard to justify it in the current world because it costs millions and millions of dollars to be on that show floor for a big publisher. And what are you getting for it that you're not getting by giving some codes to a YouTuber or 1,000 other things you can do, like giving early access to just a major site like Game Informer or IGN for a cover story, or there's just so many more digital outlets now that you don't really need to have a hands-on event in LA that everyone in the world has to fly to, especially in a world where so much more of every industry is digital and remote. I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah.
But I am glad I went to the last two. If there are never any more, that was a dream of mine as a child, was to go to E3, and I never really thought I would do it. And I went twice. Once as I went once as media and once as I forget what my pass was the first year. It wasn't gamer. Well, I had some of it was gamer, but then I had I think it wasn't presenter. The I had a weird badge because I work for a big company that owns some esports teams,
Oh,
and so I had a badge for that. But the second year I went for the podcast. A lot of tangents on this show. I like good tangents. Every time I talk about the tangents, somebody on Twitter always DMs me and says, I like the tangents. They're great. Because I think these are I think it's boring potentially, but
I don't know how they're gonna feel about the Amazon tangents, but
I mean, who can't relate to that Amazon situation?
there is that.
Or the fun part is who that listened to that is now going to give me their amazing story on Twitter or
That's
Threads
true.
or whatever. I would love to hear people's crazy Amazon stories or in general crazy online buying stories from major retailers. I think it's super fascinating, the hyper logistic worldwide transportation system of how you can buy something in a country or a state far away and it get there in such a ridiculous amount of time. It's all just super fascinating. But I'm really mad about the fans for my PC because I wanted to rebuild my PC to get. I have an EVGA AIO on my CPU, and the fans that come on those by default are the loudest, most annoying thing in the world. So I'm replacing them with new fans. And while I was at it, I was like, okay, I'm going to buy a matching set, and I'll deck the whole case out in identical fans because I currently have 3 different types of fans because some came with the case, some I already had, and some came with the AIO. And I was like, well, I'm not going to buy money on fans when I just bought all these parts. It works, but now I'm going to make it pretty.
Yep.
And it'll bring my thermals down just a little bit.
I think all my fans match. I don't have an AIO on mine, but
I didn't either. The only reason I got one was because it was during the GPU shortage, and I picked up a GPU, and the only way to get it was to bundle it with an AIO.
Yeah, that's
right. I was like, well, okay. I mean, I can use it, so if I have to buy that, at least it's something I could use. And it didn't really cost me anything in opportunity cost because the air cooler I was running was a $20 one. So I kept that air cooler in a closet in case I need it for an extra build in the future. But that was only $20 wasted. So the AIO was actually usable. And it's actually been decent because it's a 280 AIO. And that's 10% less surface area than a 360, but it takes up less area front to back. And the 140 fans, you can run faster at less noise or run slower with the same airflow, so you have less noise. So it all works out pretty decent.
Okay.
But that's it. Okay, we've reached the end. Brett, any final thoughts from you? Anything you're looking forward to or anything you want to say in case you're not on the show in the near future?
Not really. Still just looking forward to Starfield and Armored Core, I think. I'm interested in that one.
Baldur's Gate, you also threw out to me the other day.
Also, Baldur's Gate is coming out in August. So, yeah, that one
you need to text me after you get deep into that one because I want to know how their 150 hours of FMV or of cinematics or whatever it actually ends up There's no way the game is 300 hours long for the story. So
I'm sure
it has
a lot
to be
of it
options,
is
right?
probably a lot of it is situational video or cinematics because it is a D&D game.
Yeah.
It is D&D in video game form.
Oh, so I get what you're saying. So very specific scenario where you choose this, and this, and it gets you to this scenario where you get this cinematic.
That's what I think is what it would probably be a possibility for the cinematics. Then again, it could be just trying to break Metal Gear Solid 4's record for cinematics in a video game, and maybe they're all there.
I still have such horrible memories. I've complained about this.
I love that game
on this show. I do too, but I remember beating the game at 1 a.m. and sitting waiting for the ending, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is and it's a school night because I'm at that point. Let's see, what was that? 2007. So I would have been a sophomore in college or something. I was just like, I have class in the morning. I need to go to bed. And it's like 2:30, 3, and it's still going. And I'm like, this is insane. Really excited for that to get ported to Series X. Can't wait to replay it.
Yeah.
I refuse to replay it on PS3, but I said I will buy it as long as you don't jack it up like the GTA trilogy. We've talked about that on the show previously. So, well, Brett, thank you again for always coming in off the bench.
No problem.
This podcast really should just be called Tim and Friends, because that's what it is. Tim and Friends talk games and
revolving door of guests.
Yeah, I really would love to loop in more of my friends, but it's the hard part is the logistics. It's the time of it and the having the recording stuff necessary to like make your audio quality not sound like Apple earbuds. Like, you have to have something better than that.
Well, hopefully this
your audio is pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it helps that it's Logitech headset and they own Blue, and it's got Blue Voice built into it. So
yeah, I mean, it's not a dedicated mic, but it's a high end headset, so that works good enough. And lots of what do you call it? Logitech's headsets for like business use are obviously they have a lot of stuff. And man, I don't know how I feel about them buying Blue. I have a couple Blue microphones, and I have some other brand mics as well. Random quick side tangent: the Blue Yeti, which I own one of, it drives me nuts when I watch people on Twitch and I see them streaming with that, and you can see on the back of it that it's set to cardioid, and it's like, that's where it pulls sound from the side of the microphone because that's where the condenser is. And I look at these idiots on Twitch and they're talking to the part where the microphone condenser isn't. They have it set up like they're in a radio broadcast booth talking to the end of it or the back of it. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you obviously just took the thing out of the wrapper and slapped it up there, and it's fine. Not everyone reads the manual, but like, did you not hear that you sound kind of echoey talking away from the microphone? Which actually, another side tangent, if I didn't say this on the show, Brett, tell me if I did. Ellis Island had a little featurette of somebody that came through Ellis Island that was a radio broadcaster when I was there in New York.
Okay.
They had this picture with this little article about this person or whatever in like a glass case as like, a historical thing. And the way they articulated that story, like the prop, they put a Blue Yeti microphone in there to exemplify someone that was a radio broadcaster in like 1930 or whatever that came through Ellis Island. And because they thought it looked like a radio mic of the era. And I'm like, twitching looking at it because it's like this black and white like thing, and it's got a Blue Yeti sitting in front of it, and I'm like, oh, okay, this hurts. How many people besides me notice this? So shout out to anyone that hears this that goes to Ellis Island and sees that Blue Yeti and thinks of me. You're welcome. And with
what is that you got now? Is that a Shure?
No, this is my Blue Yeti.
Oh, that's your... Okay.
I have a Blue Yeti, and then I have a couple of, I think they're Samson, that are stage mics. And I like those because they reject more sound from the room. So I usually use those when I travel. So if I'm recording on the road or I'm recording not where I'm sitting right now, I'll use my Samsons. And then I have some older ones that I gave to Spencer, so that's what he uses. To be honest, I don't really like this Blue Yeti. And the only reason I'm still using it is because it works, and there's no reason for me to spend hundreds of dollars to buy a better microphone when this does the job.
Yeah.
It's nothing fancy. I've had it forever. It works, but I do think it's annoying. I talk into the right part of it because that's where the condenser is, and I have it set up to where that works correctly, but it is annoying to have to set it up that way because the angle you have to set the mic at makes it inconvenient. It doesn't set up in any way that is conducive to my desk arrangement. Like, you can see, like, I have this arm doing this like crane neck thing, and then the mic is standing up straight in front of me so I can talk directly to the front where the condenser is. And I don't like the hanging down from above thing because I find that it picks up the sound from my mouth less, and it blocks my eye line. So like,
yeah,
how do you get it down low enough to picks up the sound from my voice the crispest without it being right in front of my eye line to the webcam and my monitor? So it's all just super annoying. I wish I just had a regular, like a Shure mic or what's the one that's the Rodecaster that one is really great because it's like long and thin, and you just talk to the end of it, so it can come straight out to where it's not blocking the screen. But super nerdy audio crap. Okay, that's it. Lots of tangents. Good tangent episode, which I guess we needed because this week's news was lighter, but it's a good time. Brett, I appreciate hanging out with you. I was just thinking today, eventually I need to come like actually see you in person.
Yeah.
I don't know when I'm ever going to find time to do that because we live probably 3-4 hours apart.
Probably. Whereabouts?
How far? Just say out Indianapolis. If you were to drive to Indianapolis, how long would it take you? Because that's
South Bend is like an hour and a half, 2 hours. And
South Bend for me is at least 2, if not more. So anyway, nobody needs to hear this. Thanks for listening. Please, whatever I said earlier to reach out to me on Twitter about, please do that because I'd love to hear your Amazon stories. That's what it was.
Yeah.
It'd be hilarious. And otherwise, you can find me on Twitter at Tim Shelton or the new Threads at TimJ22. I know. I was in the first million. And now we're up to like 90 million. They said they break 100 million today. So I was in the first million.
There you go.
I think I'm
You're
like
fancy.
1,100,000 or something.
Do you get a number?
Yeah, your Threads account has your number on the
Nice.
right under your profile, which is actually kind of cool because you can like, instead of you joined this date, you have your like Threads serial number. It's like having a numbered car.
You have a social security number for an online platform.
Also, ironic that I don't like Facebook. I don't like most of their privacy practices.
You keep using Meta platforms.
Well, I have to use Meta for work for Facebook advertising and stuff that I do in my professional career. But I have an Instagram, but I don't use it. But I signed up for Threads because Twitter has stopped working in so many ways. And I use Twitter for all of like following all the gaming like people that I want to follow. And I need to do that. And they're all migrating immediately to Threads because Twitter is imploding. I want Twitter to be good, but it's not right now. It is imploding so fast.
It's really never been good.
Well, I mean,
if you really look at it.
Yeah, that's true. It has rampant problems. And Threads currently has issues too. There's stuff on Threads that just doesn't exist yet. And you can't, like, the feed isn't chronological. It's algorithmic, and it just serves up garbage half the time. So Threads is not the end-all, be-all right now. But currently it functions, and Twitter doesn't. So I'm kind of split between the two. Just, again, letting me interact and follow just the gaming people that I want to follow. That's what I like Twitter for, versus the deluge of gaming news you get sponsored with ads if you go to, like, actual gaming sites themselves.
Yeah.
Dang it, you got me on a tangent in mid-outro.
Whoops. You have to do it again.
I'm Tim Shelton. Follow me. Bye. Brett?
I'm Brett. I come around every now and then. Catch you later.
Thanks for listening. See you next week.
New episodes post every Monday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern. You can contact us on Twitter at MultiformPod or by email at questions@multiformpodcast.com. If you enjoyed our show and you're feeling extra generous, please share it with your friends or on social media. You can subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or anywhere you listen.